Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our Wednesday class with the prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhur Bhavaswaha, Tatsavitra Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. अस्तो मा सद्गम्य तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गम्य मृत्युर्मा अमृतं गम्य ओम सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्वी नावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति 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 Ever since we were born, we were told that there's a God. All our Hindu sacraments are with God's names. We are supposed to pray twice a day. Pray to whom? To God. Any new endeavor we start, we pray to God. In fact, the gurus, they say that do not forget God, even for a moment. So Shwas mein Bhagwan. What actually is God? Because we know that unless we have the knowledge of something or somebody, we cannot remember or fall in love. Because remembering God all the time really means loving God also. So how do we get knowledge of God? Whom should we ask? That who is God? What does God do? And who will answer these questions for us? If we ask worldly people, they don't know for themselves. So how can they tell us? What about the Mahatmas and the saints? Definitely they know God. But we don't know who is a God-realized saint. Because that is the problem. How to find a God-realized saint? Or which one of them is God-realized? Because they don't advertise. They do not put a board outside their ashrams that we are God-realized. Or we have gotten the Bhagavad Prapti. So somebody may be a Satguru or saint, but we will never know. We will never know. So initially, knowledge of God will not be from the saints because you cannot find a saint. Or I should say, you cannot recognize a saint. Then what to do? Something which is so important in life. How do we get our questions answered? The answer is, why not ask God himself? Because if you want knowledge of somebody, instead of going to a third party, you go to that person. You can say, please tell me about yourself. So if you want the knowledge of God, rather than asking anybody else, ask God himself. But how do we understand God's language? How will God answer? God has already answered. And where is the answer? In the Vedas. These Vedas are not a human creation. They are called Apurush. They are directly the word of God. Whenever God creates the world, he manifests the Vedas. Just like when we buy a computer or we buy a phone, manual comes with it. So Vedas are the manual. God has manifested his knowledge there. And at the time of dissolution, the pralaya, he dissolves or assimilates the Vedas back into himself. So he manifests it and then he absorbs it back. Sometimes I hear saying like that the Rig Veda is the oldest book. But in my opinion, oldest is a misnomer. Don't say oldest. Say Rig Veda is eternal. There is a difference between old and eternal. It has always existed, just like God is eternal. His knowledge is also eternal. It doesn't have to be newly created. Knowledge of God is his Shakti, his energy. See, just like ever since fire has existed, its heat and light have existed. It's not separate from it. So ever since God has existed, his bliss has existed. His knowledge has existed. So God's knowledge is eternal. So when he created our world, he first manifested the Vedas in the heart of the firstborn Brahma. Brahma passed the Vedic knowledge to his disciple. He passed it on to his disciple, and he passed it on to his disciple. In this way, the Vedic knowledge came through the parampara, hearing it through the ear. That's why another name for the Vedas is Shruti. Shruti means that knowledge which is received through the ear, first-hand knowledge. However, 5,000 years ago, when the Lord himself took the avatar as Ved Vyasa, he looked into the coming age of Kali Yuga, and he thought the people of the Kali Yuga, which really means us folks, will not be Shruti Dhari. We will not have the capacity to hear and remember. In fact, we just forget right away whatever we hear. So Ved Vyas could see all this. He decided now a book will be needed. He put that knowledge in writing. And he divided the one body of knowledge into 4 parts: Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sam Veda, and Atharva Veda. That's why he's called Ved Vyas, the divider of the Vedas. He's not a Ved Rachayita or the Ved Pranita. He is the divider. Who is the writer then? Writer is God himself. God himself. So Vedas are Sanatan, eternal. And the science that the Vedas are teaching, the science of God realization, is the eternal science. It is not sectarian. That is why it's called Sanatan Dharma, the eternal path. Actually, all religions are eternal because they are talking about the eternal God and the eternal soul, but they are giving limited knowledge. It's almost like a pocket dictionary and the complete unabridged Oxford dictionary. Or you can say the ocean and just a little stream. So the entire spectrum of knowledge or spiritual knowledge is in the Vedas. The Vedas are the authority. That's why it said, Bhutam, Bhavyam, Bhavishyam cha sarvam Vedat prasiddhyate. About the past also, about the present also, all the future also. Everything is in there. Any spiritual principle must be validated on the authority of Vedas. Then Vedic knowledge was elaborated into two epics, Itihas, Ramayana and Mahabharata. Mahabharata has Bhagavad Gita in it. And then there are 18 Purans, like the Bhagavad Puran, Shiv Puran, 18 Purans. Then there are Shat Darshan, like Mimamsa, Vedanta, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Shat Darshan. And there are hundreds of Smritis, thousands of Nibandhs. These are elaborating the Vedic knowledge. That's why whenever we refer to this knowledge, we call it a Vedic knowledge. Vedic knowledge. So let's find out from the Vedas about God. Most of you have studied some of these scriptures. So this is just a review for you. If somebody asks you, who is God? Why do you love God so much? Why are you told to remember God at every moment? Or when you get up in the morning and when you go to sleep at night, who is this God? Let's find out. We have studied Ken Upanishad. Ken Upanishad is from Samveda. So all these Upanishads, they are part of the Vedas, those 4 Vedas. So Ken Upanishad is from Samveda. We saw in the 2nd chapter, verse number 3, Yasyamtam tasya matam matam yasya na vedasa. Avigyatam vijanata, vigyatam vijanata. The Rishi says that you have come to know about God. And you say that, yes, I'm seeking knowledge of God. In that case, the Rishi says, know this, that person who thinks I can know God has no knowledge of God. That person who thinks nobody can know God, he truly knows God. We discussed this because when we say that we know God, we are relying on our intellect. And intellect is just a part of the Maya. When we can't even utter who God is, that means we have dissolved ourselves, our personality. So we cannot even say that we know God. In Brihad Aryanak Upanishad, it says, Eshaha neti nityatma grahai. He is incomprehensible to you. Because we comprehend something with the intellect. He is incomprehensible. Kathopanishad, na esha tarken matir payanaha. God is beyond your logic. God is beyond argumentation. That's why the gurus, they say, don't waste time in arguing about this. Arguments or the logical thinking cannot take you towards God. Yataha vacho nirvatante aprapye manasahasa. That's a Taittiriya Upanishad. We have studied that too. Your intellect cannot grasp God. The Supreme Lord possesses innumerable contradictory attributes. Just like we human beings can be only at one place at a time. If somebody says, I'm in the temple and I'm at home and also in the shopping center, there will be contradiction. Such contradictions are not possible in the material realm. You got to rise above this material realm. That's why we hear stories. In fact, the tradition I belong to, Yogeshwar Prabhu Ramlal ji, he let go of the body at 3 different places at the same time. And during his lifetime also, he was seen, witnessed at different towns at the same time. So yogis can do that, and there has to be purpose to do that. So God can do that. So such contradictions are not possible in the material realm, but God is the repository of innumerable contradictory attributes. That's why in Katha Upanishad it says, Anoriyana Mahato Mahiyana Atmasye Jantoho Niheto Guyayam. Katha Upanishad, the Yamraj is explaining the size of God. Ano. He says God is bigger than the biggest. It's just like the biggest thing that you can think of. It could be a mountain, but bigger than mountain is Earth itself. Bigger than Earth is the solar system. Bigger than the solar system, Milky Way. Even the bigger the entire universe. God is bigger than the universe. But at the same time, it says smaller than the smallest also. Because the whole universe is residing within him. If he were not bigger than the biggest, how would he uphold the biggest thing? Mahato Mehiyan. Another word for God is, in Sanskrit, is Brahm. Brahm. And what does Brahm mean? Brahitvat Brahm. That which is exceptionally big. So bigger than the biggest. You cannot even imagine the biggest, and he's bigger than that. But then, Anoryan. In the same mantra, same Vedic mantra, it says God is small. And how small? He is so small that he is smaller than the smallest thing you can ever think of. Think of something small. Molecule. Smaller. Atom. Even smaller. Electrons, protons, positrons. And even these days, the new term, they say God particle, the Higgs boson. So the smallest thing you can think of, the God particle. God is smaller than the God particle because he is pervading everything. He is the source of the energy in the God particle. So that's where the contradiction is. So bigger than the biggest and the smaller than the smallest. Because he is sitting even inside the Higgs boson. So that's why the second part is also right, smaller than the smallest. So that's where the contradiction is. All these Upanishads are saying that God is both big and small. All the Upanishads, not just only one Upanishad. But the matter does not end here, rather it thickens. How? He says, another Vedic mantra says, Neti nitye sathul manyu na iti, na iti. God is big, not that. God is small, not that. He is neither. How come? Because he descends on this earth just like us also. He could be 6 feet tall, or he could be even 3 feet tall. He came as Lord Krishna, he came as Lord Ram. Then our mind says we cannot understand it. That's exactly what the Vedas are saying. that you cannot understand God. You cannot describe him with your words. Finite language cannot describe the infinite. So that's why if somebody says, I know God, that is untrue. Where does God reside? We saw in Bhagavad Gita. If anybody wants to talk to God, in chapter 18, verse number 61, Lord Krishna says, Ishvara sarvabhutanam hrideshe arjun tishtati brahmyan sarvabhutani yantra arudane maya. Arjuna, I am seated in the hearts of all living beings. He is closest than the close. Sure, he can be farthest than the far, but why don't we talk to him? In other words, that is the residence of Lord within us. Sarvabhutanam, not just only the saintly people, not only in the human beings, Sarvabhutanam. But then Lord Krishna says, I have a second address also. Na tad bhasyate suryo na shashanko na pavaka. Yat gatva na nirvatante tad dham paramam mama. Arjuna, where this sun and this moonlight cannot reach. That means which is beyond the realm of the Maya. And where having once gone, a person does not return. O Arjun, that divine eternal abode of mine. Some people call that abode Saket Lok or Vaikuntha Dham or even Golok. There are different names by different rishis. He says, that is my residence. Then Arjun says, you are saying that you are in everybody's heart? He says, sure, I am. And now you are saying that you are in Brahmalok? He says, that's right too. But he says, I am at a third place also. Also in the fourth place. Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat vyakta murtina mat sathani sarvabhutani na chaham teshu avastita. Again from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 4. He says, oh Arjun, I pervade this entire creation. There's no place where I do not exist. Kan kan mein Bhagwan. Eko devaha sarvabhuteshu gudaha sarvavyapi sarvabhutan antratmaha karamadhyaksha sarvabhuta divasaha sakshi chetaha kevalo nurganascha. This particular verse we studied in the Shvetashtvara Upanishad, Kat Upanishad, Mundak Upanishad. That means that Supreme Lord is pervading in the world. So again and again, these rishis are telling us who God is, where God is. So we should not have any doubt. How will you describe such a Lord? To tell somebody that is he close to us or is he far from us? Again, Vedas, they say, asino dure brajati, shyano yati sarvata. He is so far, you keep running towards him all your life, you will neither see his feet nor his hands. And yet he is so close that there's not a hair's breadth difference between him and you. Okay? Understand this. Otherwise, you can keep running, keep going to this place, that form, this form, that Tirath Sthan, this Tirath Sthan. But he's so close. There's no distance. He's sitting inside us. Then the question comes, does God possess senses like we do? Does he have eyes and ears? Again, the scripture says, Sarvindriye gunabhasam, Sarvindriye varjitam. God does not have any senses. He's not like us. He's not limited by 5 senses and a mind. But if he doesn't have senses, then how does he see? If he doesn't have an ear, then how does he hear? Some say God is only light. This form is also a human creation. But then how is he seeing, hearing, and tasting? How does he eat our food when we offer it to him? We know that wherever any soul prays to God, God is able to hear. How does he manage to do that? How can he hear in our temple, in the home also, and temple in the public place also? So Vedas again give a very contradictory answer to that. Sahasra Shirsha Purusha, Sahasra Aksha, Sahasra Pat, Sabhumi Vishvato, Vrihatati, Tishtat, Dash Angulam. This is from Purusha Suktam, from the Vedas. Everywhere are God's ears. Everywhere are God's eyes. Whatever you do, he will see. Whatever you say, he will hear. Nothing is hidden from him. Sahasra, thousands. Nothing is unknown to him. Everywhere are his hands and feet also. Then a person like us says, can't understand such a God. The Vedic Rishi says, that's what exactly I'm telling you. You cannot understand God. He is so contradictory. He can be hard as a thunderbolt, and he can be soft as a flame. Vajradapi, kathorani, mriduni, kusam dapi. God is as hard as a thunderbolt. Vajra means a thunderbolt. Kathor. When Mahapralya, complete dissolution of creation takes place, all the souls are crying. That's what Arjun saw in that Vishwarup Darshan. Everybody is going into God's mouth. Kathor. He hardens himself. People are crying. You are crying. Everybody else is crying. You are dying. He doesn't care. He's that hard. But Mriduni Kusumani. Kusum means flower. His heart is softer than a flower. Wherever any person, devotee, sincerely prays to him with selfless devotion. Remember that. Not selfish, selfless. What happens to God? God melts. God reaches there to grace this devotee. God comes himself. So that's why I said he's hard, he's also soft. The Upanishad says that pravachanena labhyo. Through lectures, through dissertations, you can neither explain God, nor can anybody understand God. We want to understand God. We go to this place, that place. Still, we don't understand it. You cannot explain God. No medhya. Medha is the intellect, higher level of intellect. Nor can you understand God through the width of your intellect. Is it that we have never seen God? Because Swamis, Mahatmas, they keep talking about God. We have the urge to talk about God. At good time, at the bad time, we always want to reach out to God. Have we ever seen God? Who has ever seen God? The fact is that all of us have seen God. Really? When? We don't recognize it in this lifetime also. But we have taken innumerable past lives, countless past lives, because this is not our first time in this body. We have come on this planet or on some other planet because everything is owned by God and God is everywhere. But even when we talk about the earth, if Lord Krishna was here over 5,000 years ago, there's a good possibility we were here too. We have seen God, but did we recognize God? Because it's possible that we were right there. It's very much possible that we have seen him. How about Lord Ram? In the previous Yuga, see, Lord Krishna was here in the Dwapar Yuga. But in Treta Yuga, it's possible in our past life, we were there, maybe in Ayodhya, maybe in the Dandakaranya, maybe in Kishkinda. So it's quite likely we saw him. And avatars come not just one or two times, they come again and again and again. They have come innumerable times. And we have had innumerable past births. So that's why we always are longing to see God again and again and again. But only thing is that we got to clean our mental eyes. Because if you saw God, didn't recognize it in the past lives, we were not able to benefit from it because his form is divine. And we want to recognize something with the material eyes. With the material eyes, we cannot recognize divinity. Just like Lord Krishna told Arjuna that I am right here, but you cannot see me. But he showed that eagerness to see God. He begged, showed the eagerness. So Lord Krishna showed him his form. Lord Krishna didn't have to take him somewhere else or recite some special mantras. It was just right away in that very instant. So that's why I'm saying we have seen God, but we want to see things through our material eyes. We have to do the sadhana, clean these material eyes, develop that love for God so that we get those divine eyes also. divine eyes. That's why Vedas say, by none of these schemes, none of any gimmicks, you can reach God. The worldly plays are for world. Divine attitude, divine eyes, divine actions, and a divine life. Only then we can really see God. Lord Krishna says himself, you can not only see me, not only understand me, you can enter into me also. All of that is possible. God is not stopping us. Our own desires are stopping us. Our selfish desires, worldly desires. We got to convert our worldly desires into divine desires. Any given time, we got to look at it. In my mind, what am I thinking about? Me and mine are God. In others also, do I see the God in them? Or am I just judging them because of their appearance, because of their actions? Because when he said that I am situated in every heart. Why can't we see God in every heart? We have come so far away in Kali Yuga. Even when we go to the temples and the churches and the ashrams, we don't focus on the divinity. We are focused only either on the buildings or other material things. So we got to change that attitude. God is right there. It doesn't take long for God to bless us, to show his real form to us. It's right there. So let's stop it here and we'll have some discussion. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadai Purnameva Viseshyate Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.